It was the third week of February, and Lily hadn't eaten a real meal in 4 days. I know that because I counted. I counted from the Thursday I showed up at my parents' house and found her sitting at the kitchen table with a sleeve of crackers and a glass of tap water, working through a worksheet on long division. She was 8 years old. The furnace was making that grinding noise it makes when the filter hasn't been changed in months. The kitchen light flickered every few seconds, the way it had for the 2 years I'd been telling my mother to call someone about it. Lily didn't look up when I came in. She just kept writing. She had her father's handwriting, my brother Marcus's, small and careful, pressing too hard into the paper. There was a pink backpack by the door. The zipper was broken. Someone had safety pinned it shut. I stood there for a second, in that grinding, flickering kitchen, looking at my niece eating crackers for dinner like it was perfectly ordinary. And then I picked up that backpack. What happened after that, what my parents said in that courtroom, what the judge did with what they said, that's what I'm about to tell you. Welcome to Family Revenge Stories New, the channel for the moments when family, money, and the truth finally land in the same room at the same time. If you're watching this right now, drop where you're from in the comments, and if you've never subscribed, now is the time because this story does not end where you think it ends. My brother Marcus died 11 months before that February. He was 31. Aneurysm. He went to bed on a Tuesday and didn't wake up on a Wednesday. No warning. No time to write anything down. No time to make any arrangements for Lily. Lily's mother had been out of the picture since Lily was 2. Not dead, just gone. A different city, a different life, a phone number that went to voicemail and then stopped being a phone number at all. So when Marcus died, Lily, 8 years old, 2nd grade, missing her 2 front teeth, went to my parents. Which on paper made sense. They were her grandparents. They were retired. My father, Gerald, had spent 32 years as a shift supervisor at a bottling plant and had a pension and a house with a paid-off mortgage. My mother, Patricia, had worked part-time at a florist for 20 years and had opinions about everything and strong feelings about what family owed each other. Strong feelings. My father wore the same blue cardigan every day from October to April. Not because he couldn't afford others. He had a closet full of clothes, all of them ironed, all of them hung correctly. He wore the blue cardigan because he didn't see the point in wearing something out until you had to. That was Gerald. He drove a 2004 Buick LeSabre with 211,000 miles on it. Not because he couldn't buy something newer. Because the LeSabre still started every morning. My mother, Patricia, had a collection of decorative plates on the dining room wall. 41 of them the last time I counted. She had bought all 41 at full price. She had never, not once, purchased a single plate at a discount or a yard sale. Because used things carried other people's stories and she didn't want them. That was Patricia. They were not poor people. The state of Illinois awarded them $1,247 a month in kinship foster care payments to care for Lily. $1,247 every month. For a child who wore the same 2 pairs of jeans to school all winter and ate crackers for dinner on a Thursday in February. My father said once when Marcus was still alive and they were arguing about something I no longer remember. Money is just a tool, same as any other tool. It does what you point it at. I thought he was being philosophical. He wasn't. I need to tell you where I was during this time so you understand why I almost didn't do what I did. I was 34 years old. I had left a salaried job 2 years before to freelance in graphic design, which sounds brave and entrepreneurial and was, in reality, a very expensive lesson in how many clients do not pay on time. I lived in a 1-bedroom apartment in Evanston, 670 square feet. The 2nd bedroom that didn't exist meant that the idea of taking in an 8-year-old was financially absurd. I had $2,300 in savings, a car that needed new brakes, and a client who owed me 4 months of invoices. I was not winning, but I kept showing up at that house on Tuesdays and Thursdays, dropping off groceries, checking on Lily, telling myself it would get better. Until the Thursday with the crackers. I didn't say anything when I found her at that table. I went to the refrigerator first, because I wanted to look before I spoke. I wanted to see what I was actually looking at. There was a half-empty bottle of ketchup, 3 cans of soda, a block of cheese with the corner gone, a Tupperware container of something that had stopped being identifiable, I stood at that refrigerator for about 4 seconds. Lily said, still not looking up from her worksheet. Grandma said there's cereal in the cabinet. I checked the cabinet. There was a box of cereal with maybe a cup left in it. It was a Tuesday. My mother was at her friend Denise's house. My father was watching television in the other room. I could hear the volume. He keeps it loud because of his left ear. A nature documentary. The sound of something being chased. I went to the doorway of the living room. Dad, I said, when did Lily last have a real meal? He looked at me over his glasses. She eats, he said. When? Patricia handles all that. I went back to the kitchen. I sat down across from Lily. I watched her work through a long division problem, pressing too hard with her pencil. She had a small notebook next to her worksheet. It was red with a constellation pattern on the cover. She'd written her name inside the front cover in capital letters. Lily and Delaney. And under that, in smaller letters, in what I recognized as Marcus's handwriting because it matched hers exactly, for when you need to remember things. Marcus had given her that notebook. Picked up my keys. I drove her to the grocery store. I spent $94 I didn't have. And when I got home that night, I called a family law attorney. Here is what the next 14 months looked like. I moved. Not into a bigger apartment right away. I couldn't afford that yet. I moved Lily into my one-bedroom and I slept on a pull-out couch that had a bar in the middle of it that left marks on my back. The client who owed me 4 months of invoices finally paid, minus what he called a processing adjustment, which cost me $340, and I used that money to buy Lily a twin bed frame from a Facebook marketplace listing in Skokie. She brought the red notebook with her. I enrolled her in the elementary school 2 blocks from my apartment. I attended the orientation alone, with a folder of documents my attorney had walked me through, and explained to the school counselor that Lily's situation was in the process of being formally assessed. The school counselor's name was Mrs. Okafor. She had dealt with worse. She handed me a resource packet without making me feel like I needed to explain anything else. I drove Lily to her pediatric cardiology appointment in March because apparently, and I did not know this, Lily had been flagged 18 months earlier for a follow-up echocardiogram after a routine checkup, and that appointment had been rescheduled twice and then not rescheduled at all. My parents had the insurance card. They had the reminders. They had the foster care funding that was specifically meant to cover these appointments. The copay was $55. I paid it. I added it to the spreadsheet I had started. I kept a spreadsheet. Every grocery run. Every school supply. Every copay, every fee, every uniform polo shirt from Target. Every tank of gas for the school run. Every month. My parents, during this same period, told everyone who asked that I had taken Lily without their permission. That I was interfering with their household. That I had always had a difficult relationship with boundaries. Patricia told her friend Denise, who told my aunt, who told me that I had always needed to be the hero, and that this was just more of the same. I heard about this. I had the opportunity to respond, to correct the record, to make calls, to explain. I didn't. I had a client deadline on a Thursday and a parent-teacher conference on a Friday and a second grader who had started sleeping through the night without waking up. I didn't have the time, and honestly I didn't have the interest. There was one night, a Saturday in April about 4 months in, when my aunt called me and told me that my mother had been to a family gathering I hadn't been invited to, and that she had told a version of events that made her the grieving grandmother and me the selfish daughter who had taken her grandchild out of a loving home for reasons that were never quite stated but were clearly implied. I sat on my pull-out couch with the phone in my hand for a while. Lily was asleep. The nightlight I'd bought her, shaped like a moon, the kind Marcus would have liked, was on in the bedroom. I put the phone down. Lily had, a few weeks before, started adding to the notebook herself. Little notes. Grocery lists because she liked helping me plan the week. A drawing of the 2 of us at the Skokie Lagoon. A list of her favorite things, which included mac and cheese, the moon nightlight, Aunt Claire's car smell. My car smelled like coffee, and a vanilla air freshener from a gas station. I don't know what she meant, but I kept the air freshener. My attorney told me in May that the formal guardianship hearing was scheduled for the following January. She said, "Document everything. Keep the spreadsheet current." I did. If you've ever quietly carried something heavier than your budget for someone who deserved it, someone who didn't know the weight you were holding, comment cracker drawer below. Subscribe if you haven't, because this does not end where you think. The document I was not supposed to find was in a manila envelope in a cardboard box in my parents' garage. I was there in September, 3 months before the hearing, picking up the last of Lily's things, a box of books Marcus had saved for her, a stuffed rabbit named Gerald Jr. that she'd asked about twice. The manila envelope was between 2 folders in a banker's box labeled tax docs, not Claire's. I don't know why they wrote not Claire's. I don't know what they thought I'd be looking for. The envelope was not sealed. The flap was just tucked in. I stood there in that garage for about 15 seconds. Then I put it back. I picked up the box of books and the stuffed rabbit and I walked to my car. I don't know if I passed a test in that moment or just lacked the nerve or both. I know that I drove home, made macaroni and cheese, and spent the evening listening to Lily read to me from a chapter book about a girl who builds a robot. She was a good reader. Marcus had been a good reader. That was October. My attorney called me 2 weeks later. She said, "I need you to come in." The guardian ad litem filed her report. And then she said, "You'll drive me Thursday." Not her words. Lily's that same week when I asked who was driving her class to the Science Museum. She'd said it about me, proud like it was settled, to her friend on the phone. It wasn't a question. I don't know why that stuck with me, but it did. The last good evening before the hearing was a Sunday in December. I'd made soup, the box kind, the good kind with the little pasta stars, and Lily had insisted on setting the table formally, with the cloth napkins I owned but never used. She had made a placement card for each of us. Mine said Aunt Claire, head chef. Hers said Lily and Delaney, assistant head chef. She had written her full name, the way she always did. After dinner she showed me what she'd added to the red notebook that week. A list of things she was looking forward to. Number 1 was the hearing. She spelled it herring. Number 2 was a dog maybe. I said maybe was doing a lot of work in that sentence. She laughed. She had Marcus's laugh. Short one burst like it surprised her. "Do you think it'll be okay?" she asked. I said, "I think the judge is going to listen to the facts." She seemed to find that satisfying. She went to bed at 8:30. She asked for the moon nightlight. She didn't ask for anything else. I sat on the pull-out couch for a while, listening to the building settle. I thought about the envelope in the garage. I thought about what my attorney had told me the week before, that my parents had submitted written statements to the court, that they had laid out their case, that they were confident. I believed them. The hearing was on a Tuesday in January. My parents arrived with a family attorney I'd never seen before, a man in a very good coat, which told me they had made a financial decision they didn't tell me about. My mother wore her good black dress. My father wore a tie. Lily was not present. She had submitted her own statement, through the guardian ad litem. 8 years old and she had a statement. The judge was a woman named Judge Florencia Reyes. She had presided over family court for 14 years. She was not impressed by the good coat. She was not impressed by anything as far as I could tell. My parents' attorney went first. He laid out their position. They were Lily's grandparents, they were her blood. They had been her primary guardians since Marcus died. And I had removed her from that arrangement unilaterally and without cause. He said without cause 3 times. My mother nodded every time he said it, like the repetition helped. My attorney went second. She submitted the spreadsheet. 14 months of documentation. Grocery runs and copays and school fees and the echocardiogram that had been missed twice. She submitted the pediatric cardiologist's report, which noted that Lily's follow-up had been delayed by, and I remember this phrase exactly, an apparent gap in appointment scheduling by the prior guardians. She submitted photos from the school intake, which showed Lily's clothing and backpack. She submitted the guardian ad litem's report, which quoted Lily directly. The judge read the guardian ad litem's report for a while. She didn't look up from it. And then she did. She looked at my parents' attorney and she said, "Counsel, I have here your client's written statements. In both statements the primary concern raised is, and I want to make sure I have this right, the disruption to their routine." The good coat was quiet. Their routine. the judge said again. My mother from the gallery said just loudly enough. We are her family. Judge Reyes looked at her. Long enough. Then she looked at the statement again. In 11 months of kinship care, she said. I see documented evidence of one pediatric appointment attended. I see a referral for a cardiac follow-up that was rescheduled twice and then allowed to lapse. I see a school district transfer that was never initiated by the prior guardians, even after repeated requests. She set down the statement. What I do not see in either statement is any question about how Lily is doing now. The room was quiet. Not one question, Judge Reyes said. In either statement. My mother started to say something. My father put his hand on her arm. I had not prepared a speech. My attorney had told me I might be asked to speak, and I had spent 2 weeks preparing remarks, and then I had thrown them away because they felt like arguing and I was tired of arguing. I said. Lily wrote her own name on a placement card last Sunday. Her full name. She does that because her dad taught her to take up space on a page. I said. She has a follow-up cardiology appointment in March. It's already scheduled. I said. She spelled hearing as erring in her notebook. She's 8. I sat down. My father looked at his hands. I don't know what that meant. I don't know if it meant anything. Judge Reyes awarded me permanent legal guardianship 14 minutes later. She ordered a review of the kinship foster care disbursements. She said one other thing, quietly, before she closed the record. The court notes that the child's adjustment and documented care during the petitioner's informal guardianship period reflects a commitment that the formal record of the preceding guardianship does not. She closed the folder. She moved on to the next case. My parents did not contest the decision. Their attorney had, apparently, advised them that contesting it would require them to explain the disbursements, which they did not want to do. The review of the kinship care payments, the $1,247 a month, for 11 months, found that the funds had been largely absorbed into general household expenses. Not stolen technically, not fraud technically, but not what they were for. The state of Illinois sent a letter. My parents wrote a check. I don't know the exact amount. I don't want to know. My aunt, my mother's sister, the one who had relayed the stories about me needing to be the hero, called me 6 weeks after the hearing. She said, I should have asked more questions. I'm sorry. I said, I know you are. I meant it. Cost me nothing not to mean it. My mother's version of events, the narrative about the unilateral removal and the boundary violations and the hero complex, did not survive the conference room. Not because I dismantled it. Because Judge Reyes read 2 statements that never once asked about an 8-year-old girl, and she said so out loud in a room with a court reporter. You can't rebuild a story after that. Lily's cardiology follow-up was in March. Everything was fine. The pediatric cardiologist said her heart looked exactly like it should. She wore the red notebook in her backpack to the appointment because she said she needed it in case she had to write things down. She didn't have to write anything down. But she had it. Marcus had a phrase he used when things went better than expected. He'd say, well, the math worked out. He said it about good parking spots and unexpected refunds, and the one time a case of food poisoning turned out to be just very bad indigestion. I think about that a lot. We started a small project together, Lily and I, the winter before the hearing. She wanted to make something for the families at her school who were like her. Kids who needed things. She'd seen the box of donations by the school office and she'd said matter-of-factly, some kids don't have the stuff. So we started collecting. School supplies mostly. Backpacks. Lunch bags. The kind of things that are expensive in August and invisible in March. We call it the Marcus Project. It's not a formal nonprofit, not yet. But we partner with 3 elementary schools in our district. And last August we delivered 43 backpacks. Lily put a red notebook in every one of them. Inside the front cover in her careful handwriting, pressing just a little too hard. For when you need to remember things. The moon nightlight is on Lily's dresser. The red notebook, the original one, the one Marcus gave her, is on the bookshelf, between a chapter book about a girl who builds a robot and a library book she hasn't returned yet. The vanilla air freshener is still in my car. She still mentions it sometimes. I would give back every one of those 43 backpacks for one Tuesday with Marcus. One bad parking spot Tuesday where nothing happened and the soup had the little pasta stars and he complained about traffic and the math worked out. I can't have that. What I have is an 8, now 10-year-old girl who writes her full name on things, who knows her cardiologist's name, whose backpack zipper works, who laughs in one short burst like it surprises her. That's not a victory. That's just what was owed to her. My parents were not monsters. They were people who decided somewhere along the way that some things were more important than the fact of a child in their kitchen eating crackers at dinner time. They were not unusual people. The truth is simple. Showing up is a choice, not a feeling. You can love someone and still choose not to show up. The two things aren't as connected as we're supposed to believe. Lily knew the difference. Kids always do. If this story meant something to you, if you have a Lily in your life, or if you were a Lily, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Call the person who once showed up for you while you still can. Subscribe if you haven't. We'll see you in the next one.